2 years ago, Kylian Mbappé completed the move football fans have been waiting for almost a decade. After years of transfer rumors, rejected bids, contract drama, and endless speculation, Mbappé finally joined Real Madrid. At the time, it looked like the perfect football story. The best player of the new generation joining the biggest club in football history. But football doesn't always go the way people expect. Because since Mbappé arrived at Real Madrid, something strange has happened. Individually, he's still producing numbers. He won the La Liga Golden Boot in his first season. He's still one of the most dangerous attackers in world football. But collectively, Real Madrid have not looked as dominant as many expected. The same Madrid team that won the Champions League before Mbappé arrived suddenly started facing tactical questions, chemistry debates, and leadership discussions inside the squad. At the same time, PSG, the club Mbappé left behind, finally achieved what they failed to achieve during his entire time in Paris. They won the UEFA Champions League. And now, they're back in another Champions League final, close to winning back-to-back European titles. Meanwhile, Ousmane Dembélé, Mbappé's former PSG teammate, has become one of the faces of this new PSG era and even won the Ballon d'Or. So naturally, football fans have started asking difficult questions. Did PSG become more balanced after Mbappé left? Did Real Madrid lose some tactical balance after he arrived? And most importantly, was his transfer really the perfect move people thought it would be? When Mbappé joined PSG from Monaco in 2017, he was already viewed as the future of football. At Monaco, he had already shown incredible maturity for his age. His performances in the Champions League against elite European clubs made everyone pay attention. PSG signed him for one reason: to become the centerpiece of their long-term project. And over time, that's exactly what happened. Mbappé became PSG's main attacking player, the face of the club, and eventually PSG's all-time top scorer. His statistics in France were outstanding. Season after season, he delivered goals, assists, and match-winning performances consistently. During his PSG career, he won multiple Ligue 1 titles, Coupe de France trophies, Coupe de la Ligue trophies, and Trophy de Champions titles. Individually, he also collected several personal awards, including Ligue 1 Golden Boots, Ligue 1 Player of the Year awards, and multiple Team of the Season selections. From a domestic perspective, his PSG career was successful, but PSG were never judged only by domestic trophies. The club's real objective was always the Champions League. This is where the conversation around Mbappé's PSG career becomes more complicated. Despite all the talent PSG had over the years, they never managed to win the Champions League with Mbappé. The closest they came was in 2020, when they reached the final against Bayern Munich. That team had serious quality: Mbappé, Neymar, Di Maria, Thiago Silva. But they lost the final 1-0. And after that defeat, the pressure around the club increased massively. Every season after that, PSG entered the Champions League with one expectation: win it. But year after year, they fell short. Even after signing Lionel Messi, PSG still couldn't complete the project. And over time, people started questioning whether the team had become too focused on individual stars rather than collective balance. That criticism wasn't only directed at Mbappé. It included the entire structure of the squad. But because Mbappé was the central figure of the project, most conversations naturally focused on him. One thing that became very clear during Mbappé's final years at PSG was how important he had become inside the club. When Real Madrid pushed hard to sign him earlier in his career, PSG responded by offering him one of the biggest contracts in football history to stay. Reports suggested the deal included massive financial incentives and major influence within the sporting project. At the time, PSG were determined not to lose their biggest star. And when Mbappé renewed his contract, it felt like a huge victory for the club. but it also increased the conversation around his influence. Fans and media began discussing whether PSG had given one player too much importance inside the project. There were constant stories about dressing room dynamics, tactical decisions, and player relationships. And because Mbappé became the center of the project, some people felt other stars like Neymar and Messi no longer had the same authority inside the team. Even small moments on the pitch, like body language, penalty situations, or tactical frustrations, became major headlines. Another topic that followed Mbappé throughout his PSG years was the constant instability around coaches. Several managers came and went during his time at the club. Now, obviously, PSG are known for changing managers quickly, especially after disappointing Champions League campaigns. But because Mbappé was the central figure of the project, many fans began connecting his influence to the wider power structure inside the club. There were ongoing debates about whether coaches truly had full authority in a dressing room filled with superstar players, and whether fair or unfair. Mbappé became closely associated with that environment because everything at PSG increasingly revolved around him. What makes Mbappé's career fascinating is that while PSG struggled in Europe, he continued building an incredible international legacy with France. At the 2018 World Cup, he became one of the biggest stars in world football. At only 19 years old, he helped France win the tournament and scored in the final against Croatia. That achievement immediately placed him in historic company. Then came the 2022 World Cup final against Argentina. Even though France lost the match, Mbappé produced one of the greatest individual performances ever seen in a World Cup final. He scored a hat-trick under enormous pressure and won the Golden Boot of the tournament. So by the time he finally joined Real Madrid, many people believed the next step was obvious: winning the Champions League consistently and competing for multiple Ballon d'Or titles. From a football perspective, Mbappé joining Real Madrid made complete sense. Madrid is historically the biggest club in European football, and before Mbappé arrived, the team already looked extremely strong. They had elite young players, experience, tactical balance, and confidence. Most importantly, they had just won the Champions League before signing him. So naturally, fans expected the team to become even stronger after adding one of the best attackers in the world. And individually, Mbappé still performed well after the move. He adapted quickly. He scored goals consistently, and he won the La Liga Golden Boot in his first season. But football isn't always only about individual performances. One of the biggest discussions since Mbappé's arrival has involved Real Madrid's attacking balance. Before Mbappé joined, Vinicius Jr. had become one of the most dangerous players in Europe playing from the left side. That role suited him perfectly, but Mbappé also naturally prefers operating from similar areas. And because of that, fans started noticing tactical adjustments in Madrid's attack. At times, Vinicius looked less influential than he did before Mbappé arrived. Football is more complicated than simply blaming one player. Form changes, systems evolve, opponents adapt. But the discussion exists because many fans felt Madrid's attack looked more fluid before the change. There were also conversations about leadership inside the squad. When you bring in a superstar like Mbappé, the dynamic inside a dressing room naturally changes. And because Madrid failed to win major trophies during this period, those conversations became even louder. Then came the moment that completely changed the public conversation around Mbappé's departure. The season after he left PSG, the club finally won the Champions League. That immediately created a powerful narrative in football. The one trophy PSG failed to win during the Mbappé era, they won after he left. And what stood out most was how different the team looked. PSG appeared more balanced, more collective, and tactically more organized. Instead of relying heavily on superstar moments, the team looked more connected overall. At the same time, Ousmane Dembélé stepped into a much bigger role. His performances improved significantly, and eventually he won the Ballon d'Or. Now PSG are back in another Champions League final and close to potentially winning back-to-back European titles. Naturally, that has increased debate around Mbappe's departure even more. The reality is probably somewhere in the middle. Individually, Mbappé remains one of the best footballers in the world. His achievements are already historic. World Cup winner, World Cup Golden Boot winner, PSG's all-time top scorer, multiple domestic titles, and one of the defining players of his generation. At the same time, football is a team sport, and sometimes even the best individual players can change a team's balance in unexpected ways. That doesn't mean Mbappé failed at Real Madrid, and it doesn't mean PSG were better simply because he left. But it does show how difficult it is to build perfect football teams around multiple superstars. And right now, the timing of everything has made the conversation around Mbappé more complicated than ever before.